Great. So,
Hi. Evening, everybody.
Good evening. Can you hear us?
yeah.
I can.
Okay.
Hi, Adam. Evening.
Hi, Mr. TJ.
Introduce me.
This is my mom. I don't know whether she can listen in.
I can, of course. No problem. No problem. Even
Thank
ask
you.
questions if she wants.
Oh, the question I sent was actually her question.
Thank you.
Okay. Very nice. Yeah. So I actually prepared a few things. It's very interesting. My PhD work is on that exact topic, so I can give you quite
wow.
interesting bit of background and stuff on that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very nice. Just the right person to ask.
Yeah, indeed. Like I had to fight a bit tooth and nail to actually work on that particular topic for it. It's a very.
And you base it on people that you know, right?
I mean, when I do this kind of research, I try to be as objective as possible, like really as a proper researcher. So I did a literature review on it. I think I went back about 40 years in time. More than that, actually. 65 is the earliest article that I was reading on it.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's a big topic. It should be bigger. Should be bigger
I've
than it
always
is.
wondered, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. So before I answer it, I will wait for a few more people to come in because I'm still a little bit early. So I have to make sure that I actually get the correct questions here. See if there's any more since. Let me see. Where is the? Okay. There we go. Okay. We have a few more questions actually. Great. Right. Let me see. Good evening.
Hi.
Hello. It's a relatively casual session, so anybody can speak up, raise their hand, no problem. We give a few more minutes, and then we'll kick it off, and then we'll see what other questions are coming up as well. Go. Was a lot of fun with the kids today, I have to say. Very excited, all of them. That's great.
Always.
That's for sure. All right. Okay. I'll give it like one more minute, and after that, we'll just get started. There will be some recordings going on. I think that's already happening. Great. Okay. Look at that. A lot of people coming in. That's very nice. I'm hoping to be able to do these every week, but I'll listen to feedback from all of you depending on how often you guys want to do these. The attempt here is to really give an opportunity for you guys to ask me any questions, particularly about giftedness, how things are going in our classes. If you want to have some specific questions about kids in general, you're more than welcome to ask me as well. We do a lot of things around positive discipline. We're going to have a course on that as part of the enrollment as well in the next couple of months. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We've done this course for some of my other parents. They were very happy with it. Some of the parents that were there are here now, which is also great. So we're recording this. If you want to check some stuff back or look at subtitles, because I know I can speak funny as a Dutch guy sometimes. So then that will help. Or if you want to watch this in Chinese or anything else, I believe the things underneath allow you to change any kind of language. So that's good. Yeah, so basically we've had the first group of kids in help today for this term, which was great fun. We've got a few more kids starting tomorrow as well. And then, of course, there's a lot of parents here also from my other groups in other schools and so on. So just for a little bit of background, everybody here, obviously your kids are enrolled, or you have grandchildren that are enrolled in our programs. And as long as you're with us there, we'll do everything we can to sort of make everything more clear, help you out with any kind of questions that you have. And I have a questionnaire form that I send out. I will share it in the actual chat in a second as well, so that in the future you guys can use this for certain kind of questions as well, so that you can prepare them. I know that sometimes asking questions not anonymously can be a bit scary. So, but in the meantime, like every time you have a question, raise your hand in the app or on the phone, wherever you're watching on, or you can type them in the chat itself, and then I'll do my best to answer that as best as I can. So a lot of you have seen me before. I'm TJ Vander Molen. Can't get more Dutch than that, but I've been in Malaysia for almost 15 years. And I'm here because I did an internship a very, very long time ago in Penang, USM, and I loved it so much that my then girlfriend is now my wife, and then I did everything I could to try and come to Asia, and then finally settle in Malaysia. I've got kids. Some of them, one of them is actually in help itself. The others are currently still in Chinese school, which is an interesting challenge on occasion, but they're doing quite well. So I'm quite confident that what we're doing to help our kids is something I hopefully can do for more kids in Malaysia. Now let me see. The actual questionnaire that I had is here. Okay, so I'll kick it off with a question that is very specific about studies that are tracking the happiness of gifted kids when they grow up. So the essential question is like, what happens to their happiness when they are gifted? Essentially, one of the things that we can see, of course, there's kids that get help, interventions we call them in academics, or not, and we see differences there. And I'll touch on that in a second. And then the follow-up part of that question is, what are the recommendations to help, and what are the results out of those particular studies? So we'll start off with a little bit of background. So I'm currently working on a PhD project, and this is going to take another 6 years because we're doing quite a long longitudinal study in Malaysia specifically, but also in the Netherlands at the same time, on specifically this topic. So it's very fortunate because one of the key measures that you keep hearing from parents is that they want their kids to be happy, and that's of course a very noble and pure endeavor. But what is very interesting is that the actual academics don't really look much further into that. So a lot of work on gifted education, they look into the terms of well-being, which is not exactly the same, right? So I'll explain that in a second. So well-being traditionally is what a lot of psychological studies and specialists look into, and well-being is in the definition of happiness part of that. So well-being takes the form of your physical well-being. So objective well-being is the term being used. And then there is the mental well-being or subjective well-being that we also look into. And generally speaking, that's where a lot of psychology ends. They say, okay, as long as your body is fine and your mental health is fine, then we're okay. That's a great way to measure. And unfortunately, when you look at well-being in that, what tends to happen is there's lots of ways you can measure that, like whether you're completely fit or not is very subjective. So you get a lot of discussion on like, okay, are they actually doing well or not? And even when it comes to mental well-being, there's lots of discussions about how neurodivergent kids, like kids on the spectrum, but also kids that are gifted and they're slightly different, like it's really important to know what those definitions are, is that they basically people say, yeah, okay, yeah, this I measure it this way, I measure it that way, and therefore a lot of the studies are very hard to compare. Unfortunately, there is this great scientist, Diener he's called, and you might have seen his work, Halliwell as well. These two have been working together quite closely. They have been the ones responsible for the World Happiness Index. And the World Happiness Index is actually quite a robust piece of work. It uses the Gallup World Survey data, which is a big NGO that does all the, like almost all the data that you see in the newspapers where you go, oh, you know, these countries do really well on this index and that index. Most of them use the Gallup World data to actually make any kind of observations on that. And part of that survey is a questionnaire of about 20 questions about happiness specifically. And the way that happiness is defined is that it's a combination of objective well-being, subjective well-being, but also, very interestingly, responsibility. And this is essentially what we're looking at is the social acceptance of these individuals. So this is different than just like mentally being okay. One of the things is a lot of people think happiness is like just having fun, and that's absolutely not true. Like having fun regularly helps with happiness, but we find that if you actually look at like what really happy individuals are, is often are the ones that have somebody that they have to take care of. Now, we're all parents here. What changed in your happiness when you got your kids? Because all of a sudden you went from somebody without a real care in the world, I mean, not a real care, to having to take care of some really precious beings. And funny enough, with all that pressure and all that extra responsibility came, for most people, more happiness. And it's not just having the responsibility, it's being in control of that responsibility. So can you basically take care of your kids or your friends, your family, anybody that you care of, and do you know what the potential outcome of the actions that you're going to take? And a big step in that is being able to learn things that you need to basically be future-proof. Now, why is this important? Because when we look at countries that are very successful, they tend to be very happy. And the original thought has always been, well, you know, you need to be successful first and then happiness will come. And there's a lot of interesting work from Lebrowski. She has been on a bit of a warpath, a bit of a lonely warpath, but a very important one that shows that the correlation is the other way around. So if you're happy, you're more likely to become successful. And that is actually kind of good news, because being happy is almost always inside your own control if you really think about it. There's always people that there might be some people that take that away when you're in war and things like that. Of course, there's a situation where that doesn't happen. But in a country as stable as Malaysia, for example, where we don't really have to worry about eating or having a roof over our heads, you know, and if you are willing to work hard, you can actually make a pretty decent living for yourself. It creates a situation where you can feel really at ease and in charge of responsibility. And then when that happiness happens, people start to become more successful. And that's great, because that means if we focus on that happiness, so with our kids, particularly with gifted kids, then we can actually trust that as long as that keeps going, they become really good at managing their own happiness, then actually they will become successful. And that's one of the reasons when we work with the kids, the very first thing we do is look into, okay, what do these kids need to become more happy? And that is individual. Like some of them really have difficulties. They have traumatic experiences. Even being bored can be equated with having PTSD. Like when we do brain scans of people with prolonged boredom, we see the same markers for PTSD. So that's pretty concerning. But the good news is that if you know, like, okay, this is what we need to look for, giving kids agency, and then giving them options to actually be responsible for their own actions, and then dealing with the consequences when they happen, actually turns them into a lot more secure and happy individuals. And once they're happy, and this actually makes a lot of sense when you start thinking about it, if you need to make changes in your own behavior, do you do it when you are like overworked, stressed out, and worried about everything? I mean, most people that are really worried about stuff tend to really struggle to make changes in their life. We see this with addictions and stuff. And to be honest, like addictions take the form of watching the screen. They take the form of playing computer games. So it's not just the traditional addictions that we know of, but they happen when people are stressed. And when people tend to be, happy, it goes. You start seeing, oh, you know what? I'm willing to make changes. I'm willing to bite through some difficult stuff, because taking responsibility is often doing menial, boring, frustrating, hard work. But if you know that you can have a positive outcome from it, people are willing to do it. And then that actually feeds again into other theories like flow. Like whoever has heard of the flow theory before, where the idea being is you people that have a task at hand that requires the right amount of effort for the right amount of challenge feel really good about themselves in a state of well-being. And I'm maybe I can see some hands from some of you guys. If you're doing sports, this happens very often. If you play a sport you like, that you think you're pretty good at, there's moments when you start playing where you sort of forget about everything else around you, and things become like time contracts. Things tend to happen without really thinking about it. You're very focused. You feel you're doing well, and it's a very pleasurable experience. So that can happen, but it can also happen in work. Some people are very good at creating flow state in work. And basically what we're doing in our classes is to try and make that happen. Like, how can we help gifted kids that are a little bit more volatile in their experience get into flow state better? And why does that volatility come from? Because I think it might be worth to sort of define a little bit what gifted kids are. We're starting to get more and more conclusive evidence from, again, MIT neurological data that gifted individuals are neurodivergent or atypical. And what we see is that they tend to have more neural connectors between the other parts of their brain. Now, that has some advantages. It means that they think quicker, remember better, are very logical, and all these kind of things that are often associated with high IQs. But they also have a downside. They make you very volatile to emotional changes, very oversensitive to stimulations and stuff like that. And that obviously can have consequences in how they react, that the environment around them doesn't necessarily like that. And then sometimes that can lead to downward spirals that then feel worse. And that's essentially where a lot of gifted kids get stuck. But you can also flip that around and use the same ability to actually become extremely happy and motivated to create situations where they can learn the tools they need to self-regulate and to really assess, like, okay, well, what happened here? Like, why did I not get into flow? What stopped me doing that? What are things that I can do? And this is essentially the essence of when we start working with our A-level students, and when we start working with the year 11 students that are often in extreme stress, more so than most other students, where they can say, hey, this is how you can use how your brain works in a bit more positive way, and then and use the ability to get through that phase, and ideally keep that until they finish their school. But to be honest, my mother, Willeke, which I'm sure is going to be in one of these Q&A sessions at some point, she's now coaching highly gifted adults, simply because a lot of people are asking for it, like, how do I help? So I'm a lot of the things that I'm saying here about the kids, I'm sure for a lot of the parents here will apply to. So I hope that answers the question for the person that asked that question. Yes, sorry.
I'm interested to know whether, as adults, how do they cope with other people? I mean, let's say there's a workplace and there are some conflicts. How do we handle it? Let's say if if they don't think the boss is doing his job properly? I mean, how would they be able to handle that?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is a lot of them don't, particularly because a lot of them didn't get the kind of support to deal with that. Like, realistically, we are in a society. We need to be social. And one of the big challenges that you see with gifted individuals is that they develop asynchronously. What that means is not that they're not capable of emotionally developing in the same way, but because they have other interests and often drift towards older individuals or more educated individuals, they sort of don't interact with the social groups in their own age at a young age. Now, that often leads to situations where they become a little bit socially outcast. It's like not necessarily within that older group of friends, but they skip important steps. And one of the things that the Finnish and the Dutch education systems are really, really adamant about is that you have to play. I don't know how many of you have really looked into play as like a really important tool. And we now know that after the whole COVID experiment, that unfortunately not having enough social interaction for kids has really done a number on almost all kids. But in gifted education, we've been aware of this issue for a very, very, very long time. And like not having that play, where play is something interesting. Like a lot of times, even here in my condo where I live, we have an amazing playground. A lot of parents send their kids down. And then what they do is they send their kids down and they go sit in the playground among the kids. And that is not play anymore, because what happens is that the kids that then would feel like a little bit excluded, they'll walk up to the parent and they go, can you, daddy, like they're not letting me play with them. And then a lot of adults will step in and say, come on, everybody has to play. And then what you're doing is that the social group that was formed in that playground, that were playing a game, and kids play really interesting, weird games sometimes that we as adults totally don't understand. And there's a lot of like unspoken rules, and the like, I don't know, like 10 individuals come together, they play a game. And then if one person doesn't want to play, the social situation should actually be they need to adjust. That's what you need to learn. They need to learn how to adjust. But if you as an adult step in and say, guys, you're not letting them, then deny the child the opportunity to learn how to adjust. And the other way around, if you are a bit of a bully that says, I play this way, everybody should do the same, in these playground situations, very often, if somebody pushes a bit too hard, people go, I don't like this game, and they'll just walk away. There's no conflict at that point. It's very interesting to see. You see, like somebody just go, yeah, this is how we play, and they start talking into the air, and everybody's, yeah, whatever, yeah. I'm out. So even the ones that tend to be a little bit like bossy, they have to learn how to adjust. And when you put kids in the playground for like an hour, because this is the thing, like if you put them there for 5 minutes, that's not enough time for them to be excluded, get bored, decide I'm going to change, come back in, then the game changes. Like and as you observe a group of kids playing in the playground, this group goes in and out, and somebody drops out, and then they start talking, I don't like this game, you want to play something else, and little groups form. And then like it's very dynamic, and you do that every day. The kids really learn how to adjust. Now, where do gifted kids sit in this? Often they are at that stage already where they're a bit scared to join in that, because it's like, I don't know how. And then they're clever enough to manipulate the adults around them to sort of either pick up the sword for them or find ways to entertain themselves. Like I always say to a lot of, when I work with kindergartens, sometimes you see little gifted kid like, oh, they're reading, it's good, isn't it? It's like, no, that's not good. Take their book away. And that seems harsh. It's like, but reading is good. Yeah, there is a time and place for reading. I love reading. You should read more. Actually, as parents, I recommend a lot of you spend half an hour in the evening reading together with your kids on the couch. It's really great. But playground time is specific for that to learn how to be social. So if you allow them to stay in class and keep working on their project, that's another thing that they do. They'll say like, oh, I don't want to play outside, I want to continue working on my project. And then I train my team to say, nope, out. Besides the fact that they need to learn with their that not to deal with their perfection, that to deal with their perfectionism sometimes, but generally speaking, it's an excuse not to go play outside. And I've had a few kids that are twice exceptional, 10 years old, never played hide and seek, didn't know how to play the rules, which is, to be honest, is hilarious to watch when you see a group playing hide and seek and nobody's seeking. And then you have to really bite the teeth as a educator, not to go, guys, somebody has to go seek. It's like, no, let them figure it out. So you're just watching them for 10 minutes until they sort of come strolling back, scratching their heads, like, what happened here? Like, why is nothing happening? And then you bring them in. Now, if you are a parent that loves to bring their kids to the playground, and you want to be looking from far away, so that if one of them falls down, you're there to help, right, in a sense, but not close enough that they will come to you to try and like solve their social problem for them. And I know that feels very, very hard. So what you can do though is this, like, so if your child comes like, they don't want to play with me, then you say, okay, I understand that that's frustrating, and you feel probably a bit sad about that. You can sit next to me, and then you can, until you feel calm, and then you can either decide to continue to play with them, or when you're ready, you can ask me for advice. Like, we are very keen as parents to just give advice there and then, and then sometimes you just need to listen and sit there for a while. So like, whenever I have any of my students in distress and they're there, I'll ask, the first thing I ask, okay, do you just want to vent, or do you want help? And then they say, I just want to vent. Okay. And then after a few minutes, they say, thank you, and they walk away. They normally actually know what to do, right? But like, if you're in that emotion, in anger, in exclusion, fear, whatever it is, they need somebody to be a little bit firm, like as in like, okay, I'll sit with you and I'll wait until you're ready. But if they do ask for advice, then you can tell them this. You can tell them like, okay, this is the social dynamic. This is what's happening. Like, everybody's playing, and you don't want to play that game. That's okay. Now observe the group. Is there anybody else that seems to be wandering a little bit, that doesn't really like the game as much? And normally you'll see there'll be like 3 or 4 kids in the group that don't really want to play, hide and seek anymore. And then you say, okay, why don't you go to them and ask them if they want to play something else, and then see what happens. And then you see them go back into the group, they talk to 1 or 3, they start playing tag, and then all of a sudden the whole group just switches. And it just becomes a game of tag all of a sudden. It's very magical to see this happen. But you have to trust that process, and it's hard. And that's why in Holland, in school, you get like almost 2 hours of playtime, and Finnish doing it as well. And it is a point to it, but you have to do it right. So if you don't have a proper playground, it's a little bit harder. And I mean, I advocate for playgrounds that are dangerous enough to break an arm or something, not more than that. But they can't be too tame either, because then the kids don't care. Those really small, again, they won't play. It needs to be fun. So I hope that answers your question. There was another question in the chat that I want to deal with. It's like, how do the pull-out sessions work? So this is obviously very important for some of the schools that are lucky enough to have pull-out sessions. Let me tell you where the idea comes from specifically, and what it means for those that never heard of it. So, no worries. In the Netherlands, we've been basically implementing different gifted and talented programs in the different schools. And we, very early on, actually, in the academic works back then, as well as the practical application of those academic works, they realized that gifted kids often feel excluded, to the point that they get very fearful, sometimes subconsciously so. They don't really know what's going on. And it's not all kids that this happens to, by the way. It's really a bit of a luck of the draw. It's almost always caused by social situations around them. And not even a bad situation, something as trivial as like saying, oh, good job, well done, can push them into these difficult kind of situations where they get stuck. So I think in a lot of my other presentations, I talk about something called the learning wall. The learning wall is the idea, the concept of gifted kids not being challenged enough that they have to learn how to study for things. So they're pretty good at learning things. I mean, learning is fun. Studying for things, nobody likes it. I think there's probably people here that are shuddering, oh, I don't want to study again. But studying at the right time, at the right amount of pressure, actually can be quite enjoyable and quite rewarding, and it's an important skill. So what happens is these gifted kids, they get pretty good grades throughout, because stuff tends to be very easy, particularly in primary school, even like lower secondary is to say it's the same. But their peers, the ones that are performing roughly at the same level, they are studying for it. They're working hard. They're building the right kind of metacognition. They're building the right kind of, how would I say, like executive functioning skills to do well. And eventually, the strategy that these gifted kids employ, which is often like a study the last day, and then I'll get like an A grade. I get rewards for that too. People say, oh, you're so smart. When you reach that point where all of a sudden you have to recall the whole year, like this is often, it's like IGCSE exams equivalent, when you're not being asked to just recall the last chapter, you're asked to recall the last year, or all the years worth of work. And because you've just been, very quickly ramming it into your brain for that one night, it's not all of it remains. So rote learning is old-fashioned, but it's pretty good at like repeating things until it sticks. There is an element of rote learning that does work in memorization. Gifted kids don't do a lot of rote learning, and there's a lot of new techniques that try to create the same effect, but a lot of gifted kids skip that as well. So by the time they have to recall everything, all of a sudden, they need to sit down for more than one night. But if you've never done that before, that's kind of hard and scary. And maybe you need to ask for help. You've never done that before. So when kids get stuck in that situation, either socially because they feel excluded, like at younger ages, perfectionism traits, any of these things, it becomes harder and harder for them to sort of explain to the other kids what's going on. And we find that with a lot of different kinds of studies, that if you take these kids out of their normal classroom environment for just a couple of hours a week, we pull them out of their class, we can address these very unique social, emotional, and metacognition challenges without the disbelief and interference from the non-gifted kids that don't quite understand this. And if I do a course with non-gifted kids on some of the social emotional stuff, they're going, it's not an issue for me. Why are we talking about this? So so what we're trying to do is create a bit of a safe space for talk to each other. And in Poland, this is done 100% during school time. So the idea being that about half a day, they go into one of these peer classes, they get help on exactly those things that I just said, which is also the 4 things that we do. So that is grit, that is play, that is socio-emotional or affective at time, and on metacognition skills, which is where the project-based learning and the problem-based learning is used by us, by the way, with the aim to help them with that. And then tell them, like, this is how you use it on your normal schoolwork. This is how you use it when you get ready for exams. And then the idea is with that 3 hours, they go back and then they work on their normal, and they can just function fine. Now, how does that then relate into how does that work like long time? Like, obviously, school's job is to prepare you for the rest of your life, and you need to keep learning forever. And if you don't do that, then you'll get stuck. There's a lot of people that stop learning and stop being social, and they get really stuck. So these pull-out programs, the way that we've done it in Help is we're currently not 100% pull-out yet. We're about like half of it is done as a pull-out time in primary, and the other half is done in CCA time. The reason for that is because this is quite a new concept in Malaysia, and a lot of parents think like, oh, if I'm pulling them out of this class, they're missing out. But that's actually not true. For primary, that's really never the case. Like, honestly, primary, there's so much repetition in there because we know that the little kids still have to learn how to learn. So basically, you barely have to make any real adjustments. And with gifted kids, because they're so advanced in other ways, once you teach them how to catch up by themselves, they'll make up all that stuff in no time. I mean, I've been working with some of these kids that taught themselves how to code Python in like 1 week or 2 weeks. So you can trust that the gifted kids have the abilities to normally pick up. And a part of the thing is that in collaboration with the teachers and the parents, you do get to say, hey, yeah, but like he's struggling in Bahasa and you're pulling him out. Then basically we'll sit down with the child and say, okay, why don't we do part of your work in Bahasa? Right, so we're literally doing that with one of the boys right now, and he was like, okay, so like that's like ideally he wouldn't want to have to do that, but because we're supporting him, say, okay, hey, it's something you struggle with, potentially. So this way, like the project that they're going to do involves almost like making a poster like you have in a museum about something, and say, well, if you go to a museum, you have Bahasa, English, and Chinese there too. So if you want to make it really official, maybe you put some Chinese. He said, oh, I'll do the Bahasa, it's fine. Right, so he is. I'm sure he's going to be fine. We've done this in many times. Secondary, it's a little bit different. So secondary, what we're trying to do is we're trying to give the kids even more choice, and the agency part is where we help them cope with the overwhelm. And one thing that is very interesting in the way that our brains work is that if you have a lot of tasks, and you can do this yourself as a parent as well. Most of the time when you feel overwhelmed, it's not the amount of work that's the issue, it's the amount of work that you don't have a choice over that's the issue. So a lot of people that feel overworked and they go to see a psychologist tend to be asked, oh, why don't we do some things to clean up your house? Why don't we make a few tasks to clean up your car? All these non-related things. So actually you're doing more work. But the way our brains work is that if we have more tasks that we can choose to do, then we have tasks that we have to do, we're feeling control. So you don't even have to reduce the amount of actual work to be done. It's just like, can I choose what I do? And what we can do in school is like, for example, if I'm a teacher and I have homework for a whole week or curriculum I want to go through, a lot of schools tend to go, like, oh, we start here, A, and we end at Z, and we have to do it all at the same time, and like you have to listen to when I say it, and you have to do this work, and like they have no choice. Something as simple as saying, you know what, there's like 5 modules in this particular chapter. You guys get to choose in which order you do them, right, on your own time, is sometimes enough to just make them feel, okay, I can do it. So when I get the kids to revise for an exam, for example, I let them break down their revision structure into small, manageable chunks, like 1 hour, 2 hour chunks, depending on their schedules. And then I tell them, okay, it's like a carousel. You can choose any one of these you want to do. So you can choose you want to do a math today, or you want to do biology today, or whatever. And just that allows them to feel, okay, fine, at least I've got some control. I don't feel like biology, I'll do some physics. And that alone is a great way to do that. Now, the pull-out session in secondary, the way that it works is we tell them choose 1 or 2 hours, depending on whether they choose homeroom. We recommend them to choose homeroom because homeroom does deal with a lot of stuff that doesn't really apply to gifted kids. So it's a great opportunity to do that. And then if you add 1 hour on top of that, you get like a nice 1.5 hours for the pull-out session. The way it works is that when they want to be pulled out of something, they have to first prove that they have ability in that particular field. So we ask the teacher to arrange for a pre-test. In Malaysia, in all the schools we work with, these pre-tests are just maybe like a practice test for this upcoming semester. In the Netherlands, if you actually do a pre-test and you score an A star on it, that's your grade for that particular subject from now on. So it allows them to sort of commit to like, okay, I know this is too easy. I'll do this test. Here's the proof. I've got like 95 to 100% on this. And now I just want to do something much more interesting to me. There we go. Everybody's happy because you've got your grade. You've proven that they know what they need to know. And then the caveat is that the project that they work on has to have something to do with the actual subject to some extent, if there's still a little gap, unless they score 100%. Like if they really score 100%, it's like, look, you can do anything else you want. You want to like start painting but you were pulled out of physics and you had done an A-star pretest, go right ahead. Why not? Again, it's about agency, right? Making them feel like they're in control. But if they score lower, then what they have to do is they have to fill in the gaps in their learning or in the stuff they don't know yet with the project. So, or they can choose to do that part of the curriculum in our sessions first and then do a project. So then the project becomes like almost like a bit of a natural reward for doing the curriculum work well. They fill in the gaps they didn't know. They don't have to sit in a class where they have to listen to 90% of the stuff they don't know. They get bored out of school, and everybody wins, because having a gifted kids in a class as a teacher that is always the one answering the questions is also not useful, because you're not asking the question as a teacher because you want to know the answer. You want to give all the kids the opportunity to answer the question, right? So like having that dynamic in the class is kind of important, right? And then you want the gifted kid to work on something meaningful to them, like inside that subject. Unfortunately, doing pretest in the IGCSE style of like curricula is not allowed. So you can't do a pretest and have it count towards the actual actual grade. So what we need to do is we do that pretest, and then at the very least we make sure that there's a bit of a connection there, so that when they do the final exam, they'll probably do fine. And we've really not seen any major issues with this. However, if they themselves don't do the project, or they don't show up properly or anything else, then they actually have to go back and catch up on the curriculum and do all the exams and all the CAs that you would expect them to do, right? So there is a contract that they sign. Like the contract is between them, the teacher, and us. And basically it talks about conduct and how to make sure that they're there, finish the project on time, be serious about things, like how to ask for help, and so on, so that they become masters of like, okay, this is what I do. And the idea is that if they practice this a few times with us, eventually they can go to any subject and say, teacher, for this particular semester, I know this stuff that's coming up. Give me a test, I'll prove it to you. Then give me the opportunity to work on something for myself related to it, and I'll hand it to you as a project in the end. They might not even have to sit in our classroom anymore, but the way we facilitate this is that like we are there on Thursday and Friday the whole day. So if the parents are okay with it, the teachers are okay with it, the contract has been signed, they could potentially do more than one pullout, and it wouldn't matter for us, because we are not coaching them on the content of what they're pulled out of. We're coaching them on how to do it and what kind of resources they need. We don't give gifted kids an answer to a question like, how do I calculate this? To say, oh, that's interesting. What would you need to find out? Do you need access to some public libraries, like specifically or academic works to make this work? So I hope that explains it a little bit, Derek, what we do with the pull-out session. But if you have a little bit more questions about that, please let me know. Let me see. Is there any other questions as well? Like I have gone in through a lot of stuff. Any other questions for any of you? Because I've spoken a lot. Love to hear some more. Ama? I think Adam, you're on mute. I saw your lips moving. I wasn't sure if that was a question there.
Okay. About the pull-out session, I think there's in Singapore, what they do is for the subject that the child is very good at, they just ask him to go to a class higher, and then after that subject they go back to their own class. Yeah, I think that's how they we call it.
That's right. They call that streaming, it's part of like if you're setting up. So if you're set up properly in most schools, and Help actually is pretty good at that with English, and it's pretty good at that with math, for example. then they'll do that. And obviously what you need to do is you need to make sure that like you line up all math classes for all different grades at the same time. Then it's very easy to do. If that's not the case, it becomes a lot harder. So one of the first things I tend to do with schools I work with is tell them, hey, maybe try to line up all these particular subjects as much as you can. But obviously, there's limitations to how many teachers you have, how many classrooms you have, other kind of materials sometimes. So not every school will have the ability to stream in that kind of way.
Yeah.
And of course, not all gifted kids are only good at math. So like Singapore has actually quite extensive amount of differentiation for math and English. And in that, it's pretty good. Unfortunately, it has quite a long way to go when it comes to things like arts and drama and other so you can be unfortunately, giftedness doesn't mean you're good at everything, right? So it's you can be just really musically gifted, and then unfortunately in a lot of schools, and Holland isn't immune for this, that they can't really fit in there. And one of the ways that we approach the pull-outs is that like we use art in particular sometimes to teach math. So what is very interesting is that like we know that being gifted is a difference in brain pattern, and that actually when you do look at gifted individuals that have these different skills, that the brain patterns don't change that much. The behaviors are not different either. So like the idea that people are just good at math or just good at music is actually not true. However, and one of my colleagues in UCSI, Professor Dr. Peter Bailey, has done a lot of work in this, particularly from sports perspective, but also from other learning perspectives. He basically says we see that the ability to actually become good at everything is available there. It's just that a little bit of a luck of the draw, what things they get interested in. And that isn't always negative. It could just be they happen to have a piano there. They happen to listen to somebody play piano a little bit more. They happen to try it. And then somebody saying, oh, that's so amazing. And then they, oh, that's great. I get like a little bit more attention. And then that becomes the thing that they're good at. And then they become hyper-focused on learning that. And then maybe they build up some perfectionism in it, so they get even better at it. And then they start saying things like, oh, I'm not good at math. And what is interesting, like particularly with the older they get, the more that statement, like I'm not good at math, becomes self-fulfilling prophecy, because they're like, oh, I don't like it that much. And then that's it. But I've had like kids that are like 6-7 years old, like I'm bad at math. And then when they get a math book in front of them, they are bad at math because they completely freeze up. And then sometimes when they're not paying attention, they're doing triple digits multiplications in their head without a problem, right?
Yes.
And that's the thing that we see. Oh, that's interesting. Like, how do we help them use the thing that they think they're good at to uplift the thing that they're not? And ironically, this is actually with a lot of the adults that we work with, this is where actually the question related to how do I deal with a boss that is difficult, that doesn't understand me.
Yeah.
A lot of gifted adults, because of the way that work works, is that become hyper specialized in things. And then a lot of the time, basically, particularly in Asia, what we're noticing is that obviously the push towards high income, like leverage kind of jobs, like accountancy and things like that, tend to also be the ones that sort of reward hyper specialization. So they not only get like, okay, this is where I need to go because of the education they receive, and everybody pushes them into. It's a lot of social pressure often to do these things. Those jobs tend to not really have a lot of ways to move out of it, and actually a lot of opportunity to become even more specialized, make a lot of money, and then you have to try and figure out how to let go of that. Right, because if you're like a top accountant or you're a top lawyer and stuff like that, and you sort of told yourself, I'm good at law, but these are the same. Unfortunately, I see this a lot in the Chinese community, where like they say they're actually extremely good at their job, but they're too afraid to even try to speak English. right? And then when they write something down, their English is perfectly fine, right? So like, and the Japanese have a hand in that too. Like, so that Japanese culture has a tendency to hyper specialize people in there too, and these things correlate. So you start to see that that like when they get stuck and they know that they're underperforming, because the jobs, like once you get to a certain point, like for a lot of gifted individuals, the job becomes boring, and they know it so well that like that here comes another boss that is not that specialized, you know, that has other skills that they don't necessarily see as valuable, social skills, and then they get upset because it's like, why do I get passed over for a promotion? Right, like that's the thing that we see. So we've started helping like clinically and through coaching in the Netherlands with we call it bright adults. My mom is basically, she's 72. She says like the kids are lovely, but they they can be a handful. So she started to help adults, and that's so. But she's seeing people that that were like neuro brain surgeons, like really people that earn millions, that were bored out of their skull and frustrated because the medical boards wouldn't allow them to do the creative things that that they saw would work, you know, and that frustration builds up, and then it's like they don't know how to stop, right? Because it's like, will I leave 5 million euros on the table because I just get upset? No, so that's very hard for them. And basically, yeah, like if you because I sometimes read along for my own training and my research and reports like this, it's very interesting to see. And I've helped a few adults here that are like these hyper competitive, really effective traders that make millions, absolute millions, VC cap, and then basically they're being eaten up inside because they're so scared to do anything else, like because they are so perfectionistic, which is a form of procrastination in a sense. So if you want to help the gifted adult in this, ironically, what we have to do is say, okay, let's learn how to learn again. So we end up almost full circle to where we should have started when we were 4 years old, 5 years old, about like, okay, how do you learn? How do you get addicted to doing things that is slightly scary? Right? Like, because that's doing things out of your comfort zone is doing things that is slightly scary, and it's not fun. But you know, I used it in the other talk as well. Fear is an ocean wide, but an inch deep. You know, so once you start walking across it, it's like, oh, actually, this is not as hard, and it's actually kind of fun. And that is basically where you need to go to. Like, how do you get there is by actually experiencing fear more often, not less. But it's very easy to justify not engaging with something scary if you have something you're very good at that everybody tells you you're amazing at. And that's not different for our kids. Like, to be honest, like I know that the idea of getting rid of grades, like that, like they do in Finland and to some extent in the Netherlands as well, is very hard to get across here. But like one of the things is the way that we do grades in the Netherlands and Finland is that we actually do measure them all the time, but we never share those measurements with the parents and the kids directly. So as teachers, if when we discuss kids, we have more detailed reports on their progress, particularly compared to their peers, than you would see any of the reports that I see here, like hands down. Like if you ever go to a Dutch school and you start looking at like how much data they actually have on the kids in the classroom, it's kind of amazing. They can really see for every little detail, like, okay, are they ahead or beyond or behind on the bell curve in that school, in that class, or even in that region. But the parents never see that on purpose, because once you start telling parents, oh, you look, your child is scoring the top, like things start happening that sort of derail that progress. And at the end of the day, I don't necessarily think the grades in comparison to other people matter. Like what matters to me as an educator is, okay, what delta can I create between your kids enrolling with me against themselves? Right? So like if they come in and they're the equivalent of a C student, And if they come out of that school still the equivalent of a C student against themselves, so they haven't progressed, then I've not done anything to help them, right? So, but if they've progressed in their own way of thinking about themselves, and that they feel like, oh, this is how I can reflect and build on myself, you'll see them going. And there's some very interesting data from the World Economic Forum on this. Singapore, obviously, and Korea are known for some of the highest educated countries in the world. But about like, I think 2021, well, the Economic Forum actually said, well, depending on how you look at the measure, actually Holland is beating both of those countries. And this is happening, actually. There's more people in Korea and Singapore that like a larger percentage of the population has a degree. They beat Holland like by like, I don't know, 5 or 10% or something like that. But there's more degrees per capita by a significant amount than Singapore in the Netherlands than Singapore and Korea. And what is happening is, and maybe this resonates with a lot of you, in Singapore and Korea, people don't continue studying. So once they get their first degree, they're done. They don't do another degree ever. But in the Netherlands, people get a second degree and a third degree, and they keep going because A, they're not that scared of learning. So that's an important part. But even more so, they actually like it. It's fun, right? And then what you start seeing is that like if Holland's very dynamic in that regard, like people really have like degrees in lots of weird different things. They'll start with a business degree and then they'll end up with like a philosophy degree somewhere because they thought it was just fun. And that actually helps, because if you look at like another measure, we know this since the 80s. It's very interesting. I think the 7 Habits book basically talks about that as well, where they say actually the majority of CEOs that they saw had like an art degree, either as a major or as a minor or a philosophy degree. Okay, a few other questions. My child doesn't do as well in the next CAT 4 test. Will he be removed from the DL? No. No. Basically, a CAT 4 test is like a moment in time. And if you're tired, you'll score lower. If they're nervous, they'll score lower. So you don't have to worry about that. That's not necessary. Like, we use it as an important indicator. We have the assessment, which is and there's actually a questionnaire that we also fill in together with the teachers for nominations. And right now, all the kids we've enrolled have hit on all those 3. Sometimes when people hit lower on the CAT 4, then often there's something else. I've caught a few gifted kids with dyslexia that scored really bad on the CAT 4. But when we started adjusting, because there's certain ways you can adjust for that, you start seeing that the ability is there. Some parents didn't even know the kids had dyslexia because they were so bright. So don't worry about that, Derek. What's one piece of advice every parent of a gifted child should know to nurture not just their brilliance, but their emotions? Yes. So one way, this is a positive discipline thing. Depending on whether the emotional distress is caused by one-off things or whether it's like sort of like a recurring thing to the same kind of situation, there's something different that you have to do. So if it's a one-off thing that happens, let them go through the emotion, let them self-regulate, make sure that they're safe in a sense. That's why it's good to practice this at home, because it's a lot harder in a mall. I totally agree that that's the case. But basically, once they've finished self-regulating, you say, oh, it's nice to see you calm down. Do you want to talk about what happened? And then when they're calm, you talk about what caused the distress and how you can prevent it in the future. There's almost no point trying to talk about it in the moment there and then. If your kid is really difficult at self-regulating, you need to come up with a little bit of a code word or a routine together. Again, not when they're angry or sad or any other of these emotions, and basically agree that, like, okay, at any time you feel a little bit overwhelmed, I can trigger that safe word, you can trigger that safe word, and then there'll be like a little breathing exercise or a little calming down thing, something that they feel comfortable with. And this is, be funny enough, a lot of parents do this when you have young children. They'll be like, okay, they're crying. Here is your teddy bear, and come sit in my arms for a bit, and then they're done crying. That's it. Now we do that with a lot of young kids when they don't know how to communicate yet. And it's like, oh, that's normal. And for some reason, because they're so intelligent, a lot of the times you think you can have a logical conversation with them like somebody your own age. When they're in emotional distress, we start talking to them as if, they can just reason their way out of it. And I mean, let's be honest, like, when is the last time any of you guys have had like a really good, honest conversation when you were really, really, really mad? Like, I think if you're mad yourself or very angry or very sad yourself, you're also like, don't come talk to me about this stuff now, right? So you apply that same kind of logic. And then the other thing is you need to also let them run into their emotions. And this is hard. Like, positive discipline is not just about only being positive. The discipline part is also for you as a parent to let them run into things sometimes. And what I mean with that is of course, you don't let them run into things that will bodily hurt them too much. Although I can guarantee you, telling somebody all the time, oh, don't touch the hot plate, don't touch the hot plate, don't touch the hot plate, they'll never know until they've touched it once, and then they'll trust me, they won't do it again, right? So that's a very simple way of explaining that. But like, there's lots of situations in life where we sometimes prevent them from running into it. So the trick is to tell them, right, if you're going to do this, there's a good chance this negative consequence will happen. And if it does happen, I will sit next to you until you're done, ready to be upset, no longer upset about it, but the consequence is yours, unfortunately. And that that takes a little bit of gritting your teeth as a parent. I get that, because you don't want to see them hurt or sad or frustrated. But the reality is, if you stop them running into sad situations, they don't get to learn how to regulate them. It's like a muscle. Like, anything that they do in their emotions is a muscle. They have to train it. So if you want them to be less angry, you have to basically create more situations that they cause themselves, where they can get angry at stuff, and then not feed that anger, because sometimes them acting angry is a way to get your attention. Sometimes them acting super sad is a great way to get attention. And most of the stuff that kids do, particularly pre-teen, is do everything they can to get your attention in a certain kind of way. So positive discipline principles is that what you do is you say, okay, if I have a child, and I'll give an example of this so that it's a bit more clear, where we had a brother and a younger brother, and basically the younger brother was constantly saying, I don't want to do this, I don't want to go, I don't want to, like, with school, with sometimes our classes, with like literally everything. He didn't want to do anything. He would just stand there and that's it. Like, I'm not happy. And the older brother didn't get any attention as a result, right? Because the mom basically would go to the boy and say, oh, come on, let's talk about it. It's okay. Like literally trying to solve that problem all the time. And as far as the little boy was concerned, this is great. I'm getting all this quality time from mom, and I don't even have to do anything. In fact, I could just stand here, have a bit of a sad face, and I'll get like an hour of my mom's time. And the older brother just went, oh, I'm so done with it. He just went on and did his thing on by himself, and he started like exploring and having fun. And ironically, because the brother did that, the moment the brother did something good and the mother would say something about, oh, that's nice, the little one would start to throw a fuss, like do something. Again, get all the attention from the mom. So that dynamic, what you do is you ignore the boy, the little one, completely. And the moment the older boy does any behavior that you want to do, like walk in class and actually enjoy himself, or choose something to do and so on, you say, oh, that's nice, thank you. Like, that's great. And every time the other boy makes a bit of a fuss, oh, no. Like, no attention whatsoever. So you starve him of that emotion, basically, or that dopamine hit. And then the moment he does something nice, because he will try something different, they get very confused. It's like, oh, I'm not getting the attention. Like, okay, I'll do. So, oh, thank you for joining. And then, oh, I get some attention. And then next time they do something nice, yeah, good, well done. It's nice that you did that. And then you'll see that they'll sometimes, like this boy particularly just went, like, he started crying. He says, like, I don't understand. Like, you guys have been ignoring me. I've been so nasty. And he did this on purpose. So this is the thing. Like, he knew full well that this is what he was doing. Like, when the moment the mom would walk away, his face would just like, oh, okay. And he would just be a normal boy in class. And he would do this in his, art classes. He would do this in the other classes too. So what I did is I helped train the mom in, like, having that little bit of firmness to her positivity. And the boy is doing absolutely fine now. Right, so he's now like, okay, I figured it out. If I want the attention, I just have to do some nice things instead. So I hope that answers your question a little bit, Tom P.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much, TJ. Very kind of you to have this Q&A. I've learned so much already, but unfortunately, we go now.
Yeah, I get it. So I wanted to wrap it up. It's exactly an hour. So
brilliant.
Thank you guys for all your time. We're going to be doing this like every week. So you'll be able to see the videos of these. Please send the questions in advance, or hopefully I'll see you guys next time. And thank you all. Have a good evening, and I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Okay.